Good morning. Welcome to Power Pantaloons podcast. My name is Tanya. I am your holistic cancer wellness specialist. And today we have with us Mary English. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tanya. It's good to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Can you tell the audience a little about what you do?
Well, I part of my career was as a retired nurse, and once I retired and realized I didn't want to be retired anymore, I went back to school, and I now do grief counseling and life coaching. I also work with energy healing, in that I do Reiki, so I'm able to incorporate all of those things into my counseling and my coaching. So it's been doing
Awesome.
this for
So
about 9 years.
9 years, that's fantastic. Having a nursing background must make it interesting.
Yeah, it
It-
helps a little bit, I think, for like, especially with people that come in with different injuries, or they, pain from grief or that kind of stuff. It sort of helps to kind of be able to help them understand that pain a bit better.
how does it so you when you do Reiki, how does it like make you feel as opposed to like when you were helping people as a nurse? Like, do you understand my question?
Yeah, I do. I think the nursing was good, and that I enjoyed helping people, but you're helping them in a different way, more with mostly with medical issues, and it had different time constraints. And I mean, I think you've heard it all along for years that it's there's not enough nursing people to look after the people in hospitals, so you're rushing from patient to patient. Don't necessarily have the time you want to spend with them, or to sit and chat with them. A lot of the times, with the Reiki and with the other things I do, you get to take that time. My sessions, my Reiki sessions run approximately an hour, but I try to book anything so that I've got that bit of a wiggle time in there. So if it does take a bit longer, they don't feel rushed, nor do I feel rushed. And I think that adds to the session, because you can really relax with it, and allow whatever is meant to happen take place. And we do a debriefing after the Reiki as to how they felt, or what I may have felt and noticed and stuff. So you want time to do that. That's a really important part of the whole session.
Yes,
So
processing after the healing is
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
necessary.
I hope that answers your
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah. I'm all yeah, well, yes, it does. I'm also a Reiki master. That's a recent thing for me.
Yeah.
And I've been doing energetic healing since forever,
Mhm.
you know.
But having
It's
that time to talk to them, especially what they felt, or what I may have felt, gives us a lot of time for talking and kind of unpacking some of those things, and giving some suggestions that they could do to help whatever the problem might have been.
yeah. Do you also work with like breath work or meditation?
Yeah, yeah. When I do Reiki, I usually try to get my clients to go to that place where they feel safe and comfortable. Even when I'm doing the coaching and the grief counseling, I usually take a few minutes as we get started for both of us to take a breath or a few breaths, and kind of relax into our bodies and be able to become aware of what we're doing, so that all the other stuff you've been doing all day that's been crazy and busy, we can put aside for a little while, and just focus on the hour that we spend together. And I find people really, really appreciate, they look to have that when they start. They say, I feel more relaxed now, because they come in feeling very tense and not sure knowing what's going to happen. Once you do that for about, it's only maybe 5 minutes, sometimes 10, um, they just sort of settle right down and mellow out, so they're able to sit and talk and share and do what they need to do.
Yeah. Having the time and space for your
Yeah.
healing is very important. I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about the grief counseling.
Okay.
When you're diagnosed with cancer or some other traumatic disease, you there is grief as part of that. And what would you recommend, like, when you receive a diagnosis like that, what would you recommend in regards to where somebody should start? Or do you have any tips?
Um, I think it takes a little bit of time to get over the shock of that diagnosis. And any kind of life limiting diagnosis, it's definitely a shock. Um, I think people need to take time to let that settle in, and then make sure they're happy with their medical people, the people who are looking after them. I think it's important to talk to either a counselor of some sort, whether it be a grief counselor is a good idea. I think because we look at anticipatory grief as well. You know, and that's that stuff. Knowing that your life is shortened, or the family knowing that their loved one's life is going to be shortened because of a cancer diagnosis or any other kind of limiting life diagnosis. So to sit and talk with them and allow them to start opening up about how they're feeling about that diagnosis, and what their plans are, what they want to see happen, and how they want to do this. The living, not the dying, do the living until that point in time where they're not going to be living anymore. It gives them time. Then you are able to help them work with their family as well, because a lot of times when you're having that kind of a diagnosis and you're already in terror and fear, you don't want your family to be upset either. So you try to hide a lot. You try to hide your fear. So making it so that you can maybe bring the wife or the husband or the child in, and kind of all talk about it, and get so that it decreases the fear, but it also allows you to say the things that you might feel you want to say, but you aren't really prepared to say it on your own. So there's a lot of
That's
components, I think, to that. It's and I don't think I realized until fairly recently how important that is, to do that before the person dies, to say the things you need to say.
yeah, it's super important. And I appreciate the part where you said do all the living until you
Yeah,
know that is not a thing anymore. Because that's important. The mindset that you have while navigating a disease like cancer or something else is critical to whether or not you're going to survive.
yeah, it is. It's very critical. It's critical to know how to know that the survival rate, but also to be able to know that you can live until that time comes when you are actually going to die. And then when that's happening, you've done the things you wanted to do. You've maybe taken the trip you put off, or you've talked to your family or made amends to some people. Maybe you can tell them what you want, at that time of your death, how you want your funeral to be, or your celebration of life to be. Um, it helps them, but it also helps the family to know to know what your loved one's wishes are, not what you assume they are, but what they actually are. Picking out your music, writing letters to people, all those things that you can do while you are still able to do. I think
Yes.
it's very important.
Well, having these conversations is important whether or not you have a cancer diagnosis or something else, like sitting down and talking to your loved ones and finding out what their current wishes are and writing them down. Like that is absolutely important. And so many people don't do it.
No,
So they have no idea what their loved ones' wishes are.
it takes a lot of the mystery out of death. It's you begin to sort of talk about it. So the more you talk about it, the more real it becomes, in a sense. It also starts to take some of the mystery and the fear out of it when you can share that with a counselor, or and then eventually with your family, because I think it's as important to share with your family as it is with a counselor. The counselor can help you do that, road of sharing with your family, so that whether it be tears or whether it just be conversation, you can talk to one another.
Yeah. It's so during my cancer journey, like my sister absolutely knew what my wishes were, but we didn't talk about it much because we were more focused on how to live.
Mhm.
And I set up clear boundaries that nobody was to mourn me while I was still standing. Like we're not entertaining that at this time.
Yeah.
Like there may be a time that changes, but right now there were no discussions of expiration dates on my part, or we're not talking about it. We're just not. And that was what I needed while I was going through it. But we had had previous conversations on what my wishes were in the event of my passing. So setting boundaries while you're going through it, but still having the important conversations
Yeah.
is
I
important.
I worked with a couple of people. One in particular that comes to mind, a gentleman I was working with, and he had a cancer diagnosis. And when I went to first see him, I was fairly new into the grief work at that point in time, and I was starting to talk to him about his cancer diagnosis and how he was feeling. And basically, he said, I'm feeling good right now, so I don't want to talk about dying. And I said, okay, so what do you want to talk about? So we talked about all sorts of other things. He loved music. He knew all of the artists from 1930 right through to I think was 2000. He knew all and had most of their music, all of their music. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. And when the time came when he wasn't feeling well, he opened that subject up about his death and what's coming up and that kind of stuff. So it has an easy lead into it because he opened that subject up, so we could start delving into that a bit more and letting him take the lead in what he wanted to talk about. So and I think it helped his wife as well because she sat in a little bit on those conversations once in a while. That she'd come in and he'd ask her to sit with us, so she was in on the conversations.
Well, that makes sense because once somebody passes, they're not worried about, anything anymore. But the people that are the loved ones that are left behind are able to honor their loved one in the way that the loved one wanted to be honored.
Yeah,
So,
it, it's interesting that everyone, the ones that I've dealt with so far, I'll do it so differently. I have one lady that she was very, I mean, she was within a month of passing. And her main concern is that her celebration of life, that she wanted it to go a certain way. And as we talked, she wanted me to, because I would just go there and I was there as a volunteer. So I was going and doing whatever, she wanted me to do. And what she wanted me to do is help her make out the menu for her celebration of life. And that was an incredibly in-depth menu. Like it wasn't just I want hot food or I want cold food. It was in depth. How many sandwiches and how much alcohol and how many desserts she wanted to have. And some people think that sounds a little bit crazy, but her joy in making that the menu and her relief once it was done and all written out was something that was a gift for her.
when you don't have control over the situation and you only have control over how you respond to it, sometimes doing something like that gives you power that you feel has been taken away from you. So that in itself is a get I'm getting overwhelmed because honestly, like when you feel absolutely out of control and powerless, having having the control of the menu over your celebration of life as your last act, like, so absolutely I can see how important that is. And oh my.
And I know for myself, I'm not someone that likes people fussing over me. When my husband passed away, my sister and I don't she didn't do anything wrong. It's just that she was trying to be good to me, and I just wanted to be left alone. Like they want to make sure I was eating or I was having a drink or all I was thinking in my mind, please walk away and leave me alone. I'm fine. If I need a coffee, I'll go get one. I'm not good with people fussing over
Yeah.
me. So if I was in that situation, I would want people to allow me to live as best I can until I couldn't anymore. And I think that's important for someone else who is going through that. And if they want more, they're going to ask you for more. Or you're going to recognize that they need more. So it's just good to let people live as best they can, have that power.
One of the most asked questions that I get from caregivers of individuals that are diagnosed with cancer is, so how do I help them? I feel awkward. I'm like, well, everybody is different. So you're going to have a conversation with them and ask them what they need from you. Because some people want to be mothered, some people want to be talked to about the diagnosis. Other people don't want to talk about it at all. Um, some people want specific things from specific people. And what I mean by that is like, I want this one friend so that I can call them and just dump all of my rage about this on them and just vent for a minute. And I don't want them to say anything back other than, are you done? Are you good? And then that's their role during that time frame. Then there's somebody else that, is the emergency bring me a casserole person, uh, or can you come help me clean my house, right? So everybody's going to ask for different things from different people, so you have to ask them what they want from you. And it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation. It just has to be an honest one. Like, these are the things that I can help you with. These are the things that I can bring to the table. But what do you need from me? And sometimes they don't want anything. They just want to know that you care.
Yeah, and
So,
that's a big thing. Feeling that that friend or relative or a partner cares. You know, they're there, not necessarily speaking, kind of saying anything, but they're just there. They're there, and you know they're there if you need them.
yeah,
So that's
come watch TV with me.
mhm,
Come
yeah,
come help me make dinner. We'll have dinner and we'll watch TV, or we'll take a small short walk around the park because I don't have the energy for more than that. Or can you take me for a drive through the country so I can look at the changing color of the leaves, or whatever, right? Like, just come spend some quality time with me while we do this little thing.
and
Coffee, take me to coffee, like
yeah.
something like that.
And it's amazing those little things like having a coffee or going for a short walk are priceless to them. It doesn't have to be a major deal. The small little things that keep life real for them is the important stuff. You know, because they obviously would enjoy coffee. They may enjoy a walk, going and see the changing leaves because they know this may be the last time they get to see the leaves changing in the fall. That is a gift that is beyond price.
Experientials are way more important than materials,
Mm, yeah,
because we are the sum of our story. Like, as people, we want to be remembered as the things that we did, that who we actually are, not the tchotchkes we have in our house, right? So we live in people's memories, not because we had a thing, but because of an experience that person has with us. So the stories are the important thing. So create stories with somebody,
yeah.
and that way you have that memory. I'm really emotional today.
If I could give you a Kleenex, I would. I think that, you know, it's important for the person who is coming to the end of their life, but that those memories are also good for the people you leave behind. You remember that last trip to see the leaves, or the time you had coffee, and maybe you were reliving a lot of fun moments. So there's lots of laughter that took place. Those are things that the grieving person left behind can hold on to as they heal from their grief of that. So it works sort of, it's all entangled in one. It works for both sides of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some so on a side note, sometimes Facebook brings up memories, and yesterday, it brought up a memory, of my best friend from high school,
When
and it was a 14 or 15-year-old memory, and she's been gone for a few years now. She didn't survive her cancer journey, and so it's really, when you share stuff on your social media, you don't expect it to come back and smack you in the face. And sometimes that's difficult, and so I think I'm sitting in a lot of emotion from that because I really miss her.
yeah, yeah, and those are those hits that they talk about. You know, you begin to kind of um, there isn't really a word for getting through grief or getting beyond grief, because it keeps coming back. And those are those little hits that all of a sudden, when you think, you know, you're okay with all of those things. All of a sudden, those gut hits hit you, and then you have to work through it again for a little while. It takes, maybe a few hours or a few days to work through that pain again. It brings it all back.
Grief is grief is like you're right, it doesn't go away. It might lay dormant for a little while, and then a smell, a picture, a whatever brings it back, and you just get to process it all over again. It might not be as intense as it was originally, but it might never fade. And people are like, well, get over it. That's not how grief works at
You don't
all.
you walk through it, and I think the gut hits become less and less, but you still get them, and but they don't last like a new grief episode can last several months or even a couple of years, and then and if you're working through it and you're trying to go beyond the pain, you can, and your life can be beautiful again, but you're still going to get those odd gut kicks that kind of set you back on your mom and say, okay, and then take some time to look at that and let that emotion or whatever, whether it be tears or whether it be a more of a joyful time, you need to work through it and let it go again and go forward with your life. And it gets easier, but every time you do, I'm coming up to the anniversary of my husband's death. So the next few weeks, I'm quite prepared and ready to know that there will be a few things sort of pop up over the next couple of weeks for myself and my children. So it's interesting to be aware of that, I think, as well, because um, and that prepares you for some of the gut hits as well, because you're going to have maybe be a little bit more emotional over that month or that week or whatever. So forgive yourself and let yourself just be whatever has to happen, and you'll get over it eventually.
Allowing yourself the grace and time to grieve when the grief is there is very important.
Mhm.
Don't ignore it. Set the time for it, and just have the grace for yourself to allow it to happen.
And I've told
It's
my
it
my clients, my grief clients as well, to expect that you're going to go on for some months, once you're really getting farther on your healing journey, and you're going to think that it's all done, and those then the time's is going to hit you. But I said sometimes it's good to let your family or your friends know that, well, I'm coming up to this anniversary, so I may be a little bit off for the next few days. You're gonna just kind of just overlook it if I get grouchy or if I get a little more teary or sharp with somebody. I apologize in advance, but this is what's probably going to happen for me, because I recognize these things happen for me almost every time at this time of the year. So um, be patient with
yeah.
me for a few days.
Yes, and that's why sometimes holidays are really difficult for people because of memories of past holidays, and that person is no longer there, and you know that's a real thing, and we as a society need to be more cognizant of that when we're celebrating our happy moments. Not everybody is in the happy space.
No, no. And I think on the positive note, that there's more out there about grief and what it entails and how to work with it, and more opportunities for people to get help. Hospice, that certainly is a high on my radar for people. I mean, I like them to come and see me, but if they would rather go to the hospice, they're going to a really good place to get help and counseling and being able to receive all the different things that are out there to be able to work with that pain that they're experiencing. So I think that's a very positive note. 20 years ago we didn't have this. You just sort of grieved on your own, and everybody figures 3 days and you're done, and
And
it
that's
really doesn't work that way. Never has, but we didn't. I don't think a lot of times we recognized it back at that time. Um,
and everybody has a different grief process, and some people, when they leave, when pets leave, that really affects them, and people are like, it was just an animal. But not to me, it wasn't, right? Like that was a valued member of my family, so don't be dismissive of that. But that's a a whole different ball of wax, right?
It is, but it's still pain and loss. People don't realize that, especially if you're not an animal lover, you don't realize that connection you have. All you have to do is look at your dog or your cat's eyes, and you see that love there. So you're going to have that pain. It may not be quite as long lasting as if it's a partner or a human person, but it's you still have that pain and you experience those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Are you feeling better now, or?
I am feeling better. But grief is an important conversation to have, and I am glad that more people are having it, and that resources for people that are stuck in grief or experiencing grief, there's a lot more of it in today's society than there was 20 years ago, as you were just saying. So that is absolutely super important.
I learned a little nugget a few weeks ago. I went to a thing on anticipatory grief, and the gentleman that was doing the speaking, we had a lady with cancer that basically gave her feelings on her cancer and how she was dealing with it. It was incredibly um, admirable for her to be able to stand up and do that, and to see how positive her attitude was of going through it, going by, beyond with her cancer. But he made the suggestion of some, when you don't know what to do for somebody, uh, get a large soft towel or blanket, small blanket, and put like a stick person or draw a person on that with some indelible ink or something. And instead of being able to, if you can't be there to give them that hug they need, they can take that blanket and wrap it around them. And that's that hug from their family or their friends or their coworkers or whoever does this. And I thought that is such an amazing thing to do for someone, especially that the warmth and the softness and the gentleness of a soft towel or a soft blanket is, I think, would be amazing. So I worked with a group from Toronto, and I said that to them because they have a coworker that has a life limiting disease, and I said, that's a thought. You guys are really wanting to be there for her and help her. I said, there's a thought, because they don't live. The woman lives quite a ways away from her workplace right now, and I said, you can send her that and maybe sign your names to it. And when she's feeling kind of alone and lonely and down and worried, she can just wrap that around her, and maybe that will help her a little bit in some ways.
That's well, it sounds like that's two different things, right? Like, first of all, it's sympathetic magic and it's amazing. I love the idea of getting a throw blanket and signing it and sending it so that the person whoever wants whenever they want a hug from you, that sounds amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. I absolutely love that. I Or you could send them stuffies.
Yeah, yeah.
That's Big Toe. Big Toe has been
Big
with me
toe.
16 years now. That's the name. Like, he's an ugly doll, and that's the name he came with. It's on his tag. It says Big Toe.
Yeah.
Um, and a friend of mine gifted him to me round two of chemo,
Mhm.
and he went through two or three surgeries with me, um, five chemo treatments, and 5.5 weeks of radiation, and he went everywhere with me, absolutely everywhere with me for 5 years. If I
Yeah.
left the house, the stuff he came with me. And I can leave the house now without him,
Yeah.
but he has a very special place in my house and in my heart, and he is my comfort.
Mhm.
He's my little comfort stuffy. And as a grown ass adults, we are allowed to have things that give us comfort. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about while they're going through a diagnosis like this. Have your dolly. Like, when you go and get irradiated, nobody else is allowed to be in the room with you.
Mhm.
But if you have a stuffy with you, the stuffy can come in. I remember one day, I was going to have my power port put in, and I had Big Toe with me, and I was like, he has to come in with me, and the nurse is like, okay, can I borrow him for a moment? I'm like, sure. She comes back, and he's in a bubble. They put him in a saran, like basically a Ziploc bag to sterilize the feet, right? Like, so I was allowed to bring him in with me, but he had his own little bubble. It was great.
Yeah, well, that it gives people that courage that they may need to go, because of the cancer treatments are not fun. They're scary. They can be painful. They can make you feel crappy. To have something that gives you support that's like that you could hang on to or hug is incredibly important. And whether you be a grown ass adult or a 5 year old, we all need that. We're all human and stuff. So
Yes, yes. And every time I hugged him, I felt that the person who gave him to me was giving me a hug, and she's very important to me. And so it yeah, it's pretty amazing. Here we are weeping again. That's okay, right? Like,
I'm tearing up now too. Thank you very much. But to be able to share that with somebody, to share those feelings, it is good that you had those feelings and that support, but that gives that support to somebody else as well. I also get, for myself, it's something that makes me more aware as well, looking at, giving something like that to someone, whether it be the blanket or a stuffy or something. Because those inanimate objects take in a lot of pain and energy that you are feeling at the time. So it's a good thing.
um Big Toe started a following, and he developed a little personality, and I ended up with people giving me more stuffies. So I have like 30 of the little guys running around. And recently I have started regifting them to people in my circles when they're starting to experience rough times. Whether it's emotionally or physically or whatever, right? Like if they're having a hard time, they get a stuffy.
Yeah. Yeah, I use stones for my clients, and then they don't just have one meaning. They can use them to either if they're feeling sad because they've lost someone, they can hold on to that stone and get come from that, or think of a happy moment with that person, or they can use it for whatever actually they need. If it's in their pocket or on their dash of their car, they can look at it, they can hold on to it, they can do whatever they want, they can yell at it if they want to, and that's giving you permission to just let those feelings flow.
Crystals are amazing like that.
Yeah.
Crystals are absolutely amazing like that. Yeah, comfort items are very important when you're going through a traumatic event, and having a diagnosis like cancer is absolutely a trauma event.
I think what amazed me in particularly, like women can take those things in and appreciate them. Sometimes men tend to, I felt that men probably would not take it in quite as well, but for those guys that I've given them to, and that friends of mine have done the similar things, they take those things and really appreciate them. They'll come back and say, I keep that stone in my pocket. It's in my pocket all the time. And I think, yeah, they need that comfort as well. They don't show it the same way as what we as women do, but they need to have an outlet too. And if that's that stuffy or that stone or whatever it might be gives them that courage and that strength and the comfort, take it up and use it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mary, this has been a great conversation. It really has, and I appreciate you being here. So, how can people find you?
I have a website. My website is openheartwellnesshealth.ca, and on there you can see what I've been doing and what I am, what I do now. Tells them a little bit about me and how they can get a hold of me. I work in person and I also work online, whether it be Zoom or whatever somebody finds is more. Some people like Messenger better. I don't think it's quite as secure, but I work on whatever medium works for them.
Fantastic. And I will make sure that I put the web information to find Mary in the show notes. So, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, Mary.
Thank you, Tammy. Tanya, sorry. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
And I'm really happy that we had this conversation.